we see that the skills that we try to teach them, how they can apply it once they're out on a search. My concern is, or my observation in certain situations is that when we have a mutual aid with another team and we go out and I see how those team members react to our commands and our field team leaders are totally different than what they would react with their own. Like, we follow a certain format, we follow a certain pattern. And so, and when we get involved with this other team, they have a tendency to do their own procedure or their own training. So I think if we keep getting things uniform and keep working with those other teams, then we can get a better understanding of as to how they work.
What TJ, the canine handler, just missed was that a full-grown German Shepherd just walked into the studio, came up and sniffed him, and walked back out. Just came out of nowhere. The engineer has taken a break and apparently been changed into a dog like an episode of Bewitched or something. But hopefully he'll be back before the end. Who mentored you when you got started? Debbie.
Debbie, yeah. Debbie. An individual by the name of Debbie Schatt had mentored me. And my first canine partner had taken 10 months to qualify. Normally, when you qualify with a dog and a handler, your dogs qualify a lot quicker. You as a handler can take up to 18 months. With a dog can basically pass a basic search and rescue test within 6 months, provided how long and how well you trained with the dog. But that 18-month period hones the skills of the handler to read all the wrongs and rights of that dog. You have to know how the dog acts in heat. You have to know how the dog acts in cold. You have to know when your dog's on, when your dog's off. And go ahead.
Well, it's about a bond. I mean, and you always say, trust your dog.
That's always been my concern, or my voice has always been the words, trust your dog, because when you know that the dog is working and doing its job, and any indication, and like I said, all those little nuances that the dogs have on a search, the handler should pay attention to that. The words that scare me the most are individuals who join our team or want to join our team that say the words, "My dog needs a job," because that means that they want the dog to work and they don't want to work.
Well, and you also see the people think their dogs have they want to do something with their dog, and saying that you want a dog to be a tracking dog, a trailing dog, a cadaver dog, an airset dog, and saying I'm going to have my dog be this is just like saying I'm going to have a child and that child's going to be a basketball star or a ballerina. The dog may have other things in mind, and while TJ says trust your dog, I say every dog is handler impaired. That's my statement, and I stand by it. And even the most hardcore dog people cannot argue with that. What are some lessons you've learned during this? Keep them clean.
Keep them clean. One is to pay attention to detail. There's a lot of times when, especially when I'm doing command, and I'm focused in on just getting the tasks out and getting everyone in place to where they should be, is that I'm not paying attention to the small details as to what goes on. The other things that I've been made aware of is that nothing is going to be the same as the previous search from your last mission. It's going to change on you. What went right last week is not going to go right today. You can use, like I said, you can use a basic procedure, but at the same time, you have to tweak it to the particulars of that search.
It's a different dynamic. It's not like, not that anything's easier, but it's not like fire or EMS or police work. There's all different levels of dynamics through all of them. But one of the things I see with this is that it's different mindsets, different areas, different communities, and it's the one emergency service, it always starts as an absolute mystery. When you get a fire call, you know where the fire is. You don't have to find the fire. EMS, you typically know where the person is. Police call, you typically have somebody calling who witnessed the crime, so you have something to start with. When we get a call, it's because somebody isn't where they're supposed to be, and we have no idea why. You know, and that's what we're up against all the time.
Right, and there's always something at the end of each search, or there's something that goes on during the search that encourages me or that excites me. There had been 2 searches that we were on in New Jersey. We were looking for a certain individual, and we found another person, and that happened twice to us. And ironically, the last search in which we found someone, when we were looking for someone else, was the individual we had looked at 3 years prior.
Right. And, we talked about that one a couple weeks ago. What would you like the public to better understand about missing person incidents?
One is to call right away. Don't hesitate. You know, it's better to be safe and call and let individuals know that someone is missing, so you can get law enforcement out there, you can get people looking, and get search and rescue services available if needed. But every time you delay, if you think that the person's okay, or there's someone out, or they're in some other location and you can't verify it, just call. No one's going to come down, and I don't think anyone's ever been arrested or prosecuted for calling about a missing person who's overdue.
Well, and one thing to see is that when you have a call, it's good to have, if you get less well-trained, knowledgeable people out there quicker, I think it's better than a whole bunch of people later. What people don't realize is that when you have an incident, it's manageable. When your incident turns into an event, it needs to be sustained. It needs water. It needs food. It needs bathrooms. It needs lighting. It needs media people. You start blowing up that ICS chart. You need to keep incidents from becoming events, and that's by a quick, intelligent response that works towards solving a problem and mitigating chaos and getting it done just quicker.
I'm in agreement with that. However, like I said, it's all predicated on what the events dictate. If it's a recovery, and you know it's a recovery, and you go out there with a few skilled search and rescue members, that's fine. If it's something to where it's a missing child and you put out an alarm and it becomes chaotic, and you can calm down that chaos by orchestrating and putting the right people in the right places to look for that individual, for that missing child.
What's your favorite story?
Oh, it's going to be a long one. Favorite story.
No, wait, sorry. What is your second favorite story? Because I know what your favorite... No. As a matter of fact, what is your third favorite story? Because I know what the first and second ones are.
We were looking for... we got called in. I'm not too sure of the location because I'm always confused when I go to Pennsylvania anyway. For...
it's all those left turns.
Those left turns, yes.
Right turns.
You know, I have to make a right turn to make a left turn in Jersey. Is that we got called in at a cemetery. I think it was an African Methodist Episcopal cemetery, to look for what we thought were bones that were dug up from kids that were collecting bones for the occult. And as it turns out that however the graves were being interned, that they accidentally excavated them and put them in another location, and those were the bones that were just happening to surface. And the thing that I liked about it was that I was so upset with how the search was going, and everybody was on our team was finding bones and saying that they were getting excited because every time the backhoe would excavate a mound of dirt, they would be able to find bones. And the law enforcement agency was saying how they had individuals out there looking for that, looking for bone fragments and so on and so forth. And I was just upset, but I refused to go and get my hands dirty. And as it turns out, that I looked down between my feet and sticking up was a bone. So everyone on our team that was on the search found a bone, including myself.
Well, that was a you've got a search in a cemetery. It's like a joke. There's a joke about that with an air crash in a cemetery. But the thing about that search was that when we overdevelop the land, we cause erosion, and one of the ways it manifests itself is that, the frost line changes, things freeze thaw, get overrun, and the perimeters of these older cemeteries have old graves in them that wash up over time. Coffins very often look like oil drums as they're frozen, thawed, compressed in the ground, and there were bones up. And when erosion had just made bones come up everywhere, and I remember we went into the one hole to organize what we thought was the 2 or 3 bodies from that location, and said, okay, while we're in there, clear the area with the cadaver dogs, mark anything that you find in red if you find a bone, and mark any area in yellow where the dogs are hitting strong. And I remember coming up out of a hole thinking we were done, and it was like that moment in Jaws where he says, you're going to need a bigger boat, because there was red and there was yellow everywhere. And we used up all of our
evidence bags.
We used up 3 years of evidence bags in a day.
And at the view that Mark is trying to describe is like when from the scene from The Wizard of Oz, prior to them running from the forest to the city of Oz, to where everything is surrounded by poppies, and that's what that entire cemetery area looked like, with all of the areas that the dogs were hitting on.
It was all on the perimeter, and that's going to be a problem with older cemeteries, as there's erosion and overdevelopment and everything throughout the area. But what do you think your legacy will be in search and rescue, TJ? We're down to the wire here.
Other than the fact that I helped contribute to our team, to Greater Philadelphia Search and Rescue, and I'm not the one that wants to be honored in any way. I was just grateful to be able to help out. The search team has given me a lot of insight to life and to view myself and my surroundings with a little bit more carefulness and compassion than I would have thought previously.
Well, I can say that from my experience working with you that a couple people that are alive today that wouldn't be alive if you weren't doing this, and if you decide to do something else. And I think that you've helped people. I think the whole team has helped people in more ways than we ever know, and people have branched out and done their own things and helped people. So I think that's a good thing, and I think it's something everybody should be proud of. But we're at the end of another half an hour, and Russ is back, and I'd like to thank everybody for listening. Check us out at www.unsung.us if you have questions, comments, suggestions, or anything for the show. As always, good talking to you. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week.
Sometimes